The music video was equally as important as the song. If you weren't visual, if you didn't work in front of a camera, you really weren't going to happen as a band.
Video Killed the Radio Star presents Extended Play, the artist's interviews. In this episode, Gary Kemp explains the inspiration and ideas behind Spandau Ballet's 80s music videos.
In the 60s and to a certain extent the 70s, the only thing you really had to be good at was making a record, making a song. Then I think more and more you had to be good at giving a good interview, be it having a really good philosophy that went with your music, and kind of punk really started that. And certainly we were very much into the idea of the manifesto in what we had to say about, you know, changing cultures in youth culture. And the video was also something you had to be good at. At that point, people were listening to the radio less and watching TV more. And if you want your music on TV, then the video is the only way to do it. And at least with the video, you've controlled it. It's not like doing a TV appearance on a breakfast show or something, where you've no idea what the camera work's going to be like, or how the makeup is, or anything. This is something totally controlled by the band, and we always made sure we did control it. The first single, to cut long story short, we needed a video. It wasn't so important. The record companies weren't so insistent at that point about, oh, you've got to have a video, but it was something we wanted. Up until then, the majority of videos were bands playing against a white backdrop. They were performance videos, and I suppose we definitely wanted a performance video, but we wanted a performance video that said something about where we were coming from as a band. There were two things happening at the same time. There was access to videos through more TV shows wanting to show videos, and at the same time a whole visual, much more visual pop movement, youth movement happening. So the two were just a marriage made in heaven. Spandau were coming out of the Blitz Club, neuromantic scene, very highly visual, glam influenced, if you like, because we were all Bowie fans, glam influenced scene that included, in the end, people like Steve Strange, Boy George, Ultravox. And so we wanted to put that in context in our first video. So the extras all came from the Blitz. We got two girls dancing in that Blitz style. So with the video, we weren't just selling the band, we were putting the band in context and showing, if you like, a kind of philosophy of the group and where we were coming from. That's what video was allowing us to sell. I don't think any pop video stands any test of time in the same way that fashion doesn't. You know, people always think that at any given moment they've reached the pinnacle of evolution for fashion. Oh God, it all came to this. Now we're perfect, but in 10 years' time we'll all be laughing at it anyway. So there is a bit of that distraction in watching old videos, where sometimes the songs can be still closer to the kind of music that's being made today. The video will always date it, and primarily it's about the fashion. Also, things become cliche really quickly, so you might watch a video from the early 80s thinking, oh my God, look at those cliches, the backlit smoke, you know, the girl with the big hair. But you might be watching the video that did it first and broke all the boundaries and made the rules. And I think that there are videos that, if you know the history of them, that certainly are seminal, and one of them has to be Ultravox's Vienna.
This means nothing to me.
suddenly saw a film on screen. Russell Mulcahy, he put black at the top and the bottom to make it look more panoramic, so it looked like a 70mm film being shown on television. It was a video trick, but it was the backlit smoke, it was the mood, it was the sort of film noir style of it. And Ultravox's Vienna sort of changed the landscape of what was possible for a band to do. You didn't actually have to play your instruments on screen, that you could be an actor within this. And so I immediately wanted to meet with Russell for the next video we were going to be doing for a song called Musclebound.
Personally speaking, I think the 80s is one of the great periods of music, yeah. I think the music was correct to be made as videos. The marriage was perfect. There were certain groups that were just fabulous, you know? With Spandau Ballet, Gary Kemp, good friend, amazing talent, basically the leader of the band, nearly, so to speak. And we would just, you know, come up with the ideas.
I found him incredibly inspiring, and we came up with an idea of because I said, oh, this song has got sort of Russian folk music in it, and you know, it was very histrionic and had a sort of, you know, heightened reality about it. It was sort of like the Russian steppes. We decided maybe we'd go up to the Lake District and film us on horseback. And at that time, we were all kind of wearing these kind of cloths and things thrown around us. That was the sort of hip fashion. So Russell's looking at that thinking, maybe we'll make it sort of medieval on horseback, and maybe like an old communist film with people with scythes and hammers. But something happened on the Musclebound video that went on to change video again, and that is it snowed.
Well, the snow wasn't my fault. I mean, yes, I remember the drive up there, and all of a sudden we're snowed in. We had this little pub, and all I had was some, like, fish fingers.
We were trapped up in the Lake District for 3 days. Instead of 1 day's filming, we were up there for 3 days, and because we were trapped up there, the insurance came down on us as well. So Russell's thinking, great, I can just shoot and shoot and shoot. We came back with this incredible epic of a video that has so many different setups in it and so many different extras and shots and people.
And then we had the big sequence at the end with everyone like either covered in like paint as statues or whatever for the big end shot, and the big bonfire was meant to explode, and the special effects guy didn't have a match.
Spandau Ballet as a band really were at the beginning of our career, were very much about Soho nightclubs. That was our association. You know, we were coming out of that club scene that was written about all over the world, that whole neuromantic Blitz thing. That had moved into a club called Beetroot. And I'd written a song called Chant Number 1, mentioning the Beetroot Club. So when I went to see Russell, I said, look, we've got to shoot it in the Beetroot. But what that video did was, it placed the band in social context. We were saying, this is what it's about, this is where we are. We know there are thousands of kids out there who can't even get into this club. Well, here's a little peek at us in it. I said to Russell that I had an idea to shoot it like as though Tony was in some sort of film noir, as though he was in a kind of, in a way, it was about Tony's paranoia. So he arrives sort of dishevelled, quite sweaty, nervous, and comes down into the club, and he passes a guy called Ollie, whose club it was, on the door. So and Tony goes down into the club and sees himself in a band at the other end.
I love that video because of the sweat, and I just kept spraying them down with sweat, making it look hot, and I shot it really tight, and boom, there's boxing footage going on. To me, it was probably the realest performance video I've ever shot.
I asked Russell if we could shoot it all on long lens. I love the look of a long lens shot, because I think when you do video on Top of the Pops, it's all wide angle, close, up to your face, which again makes things a lot more real and takes away the mystique. A long lens has a sort of fantastic reportage look. It blurs the background out, makes the focus only very narrow, so it made the place look much more claustrophobic. These little bits for me make that video really capturing something that was very exciting in London at that time. But what it also did was it sold it to the rest of the world. A guy called Frankie Crocker, who was the head of a black radio station in New York, saw that video in New York and started playing chart number 1 on his black radio station, which at that time for white boys to get on black radio was fantastic. But it was the video that actually sold that record to it. There was another great little moment in that video that I like, which is I sang the rap, but there was the guy called Steve Lewis was the DJ at the Beat Route, and he was at that time he was the beginning of DJ culture. He was enormously famous, and he was always a bit of a lefty, Steve. So we gave him a picture of Lenin and put it on his deck, and we got him to do the rap, even though it's me singing on the record.
I think it's the best one I've done with Spandau. It emotionally hits you. You feel like you're in a small, sweaty nightclub. You know, you're feeling the beat, even though that we're shooting at 10 a.m. in the morning. You know, and I've got the Spritz bottle out.
Every time we ever did a video, I was always at the edit. Russell will tell you how annoying I was. And then I got hugely jealous because he left me for another lover. Went off on Duran Duran's Learjet for God knows how long, and we ended up having to work with a couple of other video directors. And for me, it was good, but it wasn't great. And we couldn't wait to get Russell back, which we did eventually on True. True was a big change in music for us. After 2 albums where we'd been sort of the hippest band in London, I mean, achingly hip, it was impossible to do any more of that. I mean, you can't be hip and be on Top of the Pops 6 times, you know, so there was a sense of, well, you know, if we want to stay in this business, we need to be a pop band.
So true, funny how it seems, always in time, but never in line for dreams.
I wanted to sell records all over the world because all my heroes had done the same thing. I grew up loving Bowie, and that's what he did. You know, there was no shame in the single, no shame in the pop music. I actually felt a relief when I came to write the True album because I wasn't worrying about, does this have the right groove? Does this fit in with a cultural scene? I wanted to write 8 songs that were great songs.
True was done very simply. Sometimes, you know, you hear a song and you go like, I don't need really to do much with this.
For me, True, the song, was such an important song. I didn't really want to detract from whatever made that song work, and it really did work, by putting too much on the video, on the screen, that would be detracting from the performance. So for the first time ever, we said, look, all we want, Russell, is a great performance video. We'd had these suits made by one of the friends of ours who was a pretty cool cat called Chris Sullivan, who designed these sort of Western gambling kind of Doc Holliday type suits. And we just said, right, that's who we are. We want to get up there and just sing this song. Russell put in all the split screens, feeling that, and I think it works beautifully. That again, shot on a lot of long lenses. I mean, that was almost my big thing in those days, you know. But he put the split screens in, which just add to the interest of the graphic feel of the video, rather than just the same endless shot of the performers and the singer.
Basically, the imagery, the rippling light water thing, I just wanted to have a relaxing feel, like a wallpaper, like, you know, put you in the mood.
Of course, Russell lit it beautifully, came up with a great concept. But then behind our backs, he took it one stage further, and we were a bit surprised. We got the video sent out to us when we were on the road, and we put it in the machine and played it back, and there we are, performing at the front. And all of a sudden then, there's this kid walking through the streets being followed by some cartoon matchstick man. And he said, you know, Russell, what are you doing here? Why have you stuck this all over it? You know, and he couldn't help himself but to do something extra. And we hated the animation. We thought it made the song ironic. We thought it just detracted from the music. And so we said, Russell, sorry, you know, can you take it all out and re-edit the piece? Which he did, and that's the video that everyone sees now. I think a song like True was probably less about the video than the song, because some songs really need a video. Other songs are going to get heavy rotation on the radio because they just work anyway. To have both is a dream.
Thank you for coming home. Sorry that the chairs are all warm. I left them here, I could have sworn. These are my salad days, slowly being eaten away. Just another play for today. Oh, but I'm proud of you, but I'm proud of you. Nothing left to make me feel small. Luck has left me standing so tall.
We worked with a guy called Brian Duffy, who was a photographer on the video Gold, and he'd never done a video before, and I don't think he quite understood the concept of how these things worked, because being a photographer, he probably came from, especially from the 60s, he came from a time of just being able to be in control of his art, totally. And I think this is probably why great film directors have not crossed into video or dabbled in video, where commercial directors do very well in video, because commercials are often directed by committee. In the same way, videos tend to be directed by committee, and that committee is usually the band and the record company. We did Gold with Duffy, and it was going to be shot in Spain, and it was intercut with performance, but also with Tony in Andalusia. And I flew out with Tony and Brian and the crew to shoot this, and about halfway through the day, Brian walked off the set. It was probably my fault, because I don't think he could handle the fact that Tony and I, especially me, were wanting to be so involved in shots that he was doing. And we were saying, no, we don't like that, maybe we could shoot it this way. I think that lack of total control shocked him, and he left. We carried on and we shot for the rest of the day with me and the assistant director, calling the shots, if you like. And then when I got back to London, I called him and I said, look, you know, I'd really like you to edit this piece together. I hope you like everything else we shot. And he did. He edited it together, and we resolved our differences, and I met my first wife, because she was the girl in it. The video cable companies changed British music, made it far more successful, because it gave access for Americans to what was happening in Britain. People like Bruce Springsteen, I think, in the early 80s, maybe he didn't make any, maybe he couldn't be bothered, maybe he didn't quite get it. But certainly Spandau and Duran had videos to show, so we were on heavy rotation. In 1983, when we did our first American tour, you couldn't get MTV in Manhattan at the beginning, where you could get it in sort of, you know, Minneapolis and other places. You couldn't get it in Chicago. And we noticed a real difference in ticket sales on the places that didn't have MTV. And I think that's really what, you know, sold us to Americans, why we ended up doing big American tours and why we ended up having number ones over there. Without a doubt, you know, this was the way forward. This was a way of British bands claiming the world. And I think it was British bands, because at that point when MTV started and Video Musica and things like that, British bands were the only ones really making videos that were worth seeing, that were exciting, that were different. I think the video will date the song. That is the danger of it, and probably why, if someone says to me, I heard your music today, I'm happier than if they say, I saw your video of that song on TV today.